I'd like to welcome everyone to this month's Wherescape Expert session. I hope you all had a great holiday season and a great time with the families. Right? Welcome back to your office, wherever you are. And yeah, let's start again with the Wherescape Expert session series. My name is Chung Ta, and I got this time around another question from the audience from the previous sessions. Um, so let's get on with it. So again, just a quick introduction. My name is Chung Ta, in case you haven't heard of me. I've been with Scalefree for over 7, almost 8 years now. I've been working with clients of Scalefree of different sizes since 2019 in various branches, assisting them in building their BI data warehouse solutions with Datavolt 2.0. And I've been working intensively with automation tools like Wherescape and 3D and Red for the last 5, 6 years. And I've been automating Datavolt solutions with them and several of our clients. So I'm very happy to be able to present to you today a question from the audience from the last time. It was about well, one of our previous sessions was about multi-active satellites, and in there we had an example with a multi-active satellite with a valid from and valid to timestamps that would be hanging off of a link. And this audience member asked if he could use a dependent child link in that scenario and which option is better and how to do it in Wherescape. Those points will be covered in this Wherescape expert session. Just a quick reminder, from the previous session, we had this example here when talking about multi-active satellites. So a multi-active satellite, by definition, it would store multiple entries with descriptive information that would be available, be active, or that would be valid at the same point in time. And the parent of a multi-active satellite can be either a hub or a link, right? And the example at hand was about coverage details for insurance policies, but with different validity time windows. So you have like a policy ID 001 and the coverage ID 1000. It would be predefined for the running time window, which is from the first, let's say the 1st of January 2024 till 30th April of 2024. And for the future, there's also already a definition for that coverage amount, but the amount is different, right? So you want to have a different valid from, valid to window and a different amount. So in this example, we established that here you would have the business keys, policy, and coverage. The valid from we would choose as the multi-active key. So the multi-active key is basically, it would act as part of the primary key definition in the source so that you can use the business keys together with the multi-active keys to uniquely identify the records in the source table. So that's the general idea, and that's also a hint how to identify multi-active keys. And together, the satellite primary key is the hash keys. Of course, in this case, because it's going to be a link satellite, right? You would see a link hash key calculated from the business keys of policy and coverage. The load date timestamp would be part of the primary key of the satellite and also the valid from. So, and just a quick note here, in this webinar, we would also have data examples that would be a little bit of mixed, say, raw data and the data vault model, just for the sake of simplicity, simple presentation, let's say that, right? It's easier for me to explain it to you. But of course, the satellites would not have the business key as per Datavolt 2.0 standard. So the question was, could you use a dependent child link in this case? And that was a totally valid question, and I think this is very important that we talk about as well. As a general data vault, topic. There's certainly both way would be valid, but I would recommend one way over the other. And we will talk about that, right? So by definition of the dependent child link, what it does, it's a link entity that may connect one or more hubs as usual, right? But it would contain one or more additional key attributes that would combine when combined with the business keys connected by the link that can be used then to uniquely identify incoming data records. Now, that sounds a lot similar like the multi-active key definition that we just talked about, right? However, in some cases, if not most cases, this alternate key doesn't really have a business meaning outside of the relationship with the other business keys. So it cannot stand alone. That is why that's the reason behind the name for that attribute. It's called dependent child key. It is dependent on the parent, the business key on the primary keys to the other objects. If you look up dependent child link in several like data vault literatures or blog articles online, right, you would find many different names for this. Sometimes it's called degenerated link. Sometimes it's called peg-leg link, with a funny photo of like a pirate, because the pirate has just one leg. And then you would also find a non-historized link reference or a transactional link, right? But all these things all these names can be used to describe a link relationship that would need an additional key to uniquely identify the data records in the source. So the example here, just one example that's very easy and very very easy to follow, and it's also very common, right? Is when you model invoices or order line items with multiple line items per order. So the business key here, or the hubs you could identify here, are order, product, and then you would have a link item number. A line item number, right? So within an order, you would have a line item number. You see, if you take the line item number by its own, it doesn't have any meaning, and it cannot logically stand alone, because you would have like multiple line item numbers 1, 2, and 3 in different orders, right? So that is what we mean by it's not it's a additional key that would depend on other attributes, other key attributes, right? And then in here you can see in this example, just to highlight the relationships within a order line item table. So a product ID can be listed multiple times with multiple or with different line items due to a discount, for example. In this example, the order has a total of 5 units for product ID P1234. However, the 5th unit received a 20% discount, right? Then, yeah, that is the reason why the only unique key combination that can be used to identify records in the source is order ID, product ID, and line item. And this is where a dependent child link, or if, now this is an if, right? If the amount, the quantity, so the information of let's say the transactional information cannot be changed, then you can even use a so-called non-historized link to model this. So let's pretend this is, the standard data example, a transactional data record cannot be changed. But I just want to highlight it happens in some, if not many, client projects that we've been through. But it's totally fine, and we can deal with that. So in this example, the recommended way to do to model this is to use a either two ways, right? Either of two ways. So either a non-historized dependent child link with a non-historized satellite that contain the invoice footer details, or you can combine both of those objects into one and call it a non-historized dependent child link, right? You would have one big table with all the information that you would need. The reason is the combination of, or let's say to each key combination, if the transaction information cannot be changed, then you can assume that to each key combination, there can be only one data record. And that is where when you combine the non-historized link or the link structure and the satellite structure together, you would have one line per link hash key. And that is very, very easy to query. You will have everything you need to a transaction in one table, and you don't have to perform any joins. And that is quite efficient design for facts table, right? The fewer joins you have to make for facts, the better. So that is certainly a preferred, say, design. I would prefer the design of one table for or the line items over two tables. But you can also have the case that you have transactional data, but the data itself, each attributes in there because of the primary key constraint definition in the source, or however, then you would detect changes. With that, we would recommend to build a standard satellite to pick up, deltas, so changes in the transaction. And that's another design to tackle the challenge of, having changes in transactional data. And with that, you would have a non-historized link with, let's say, only the key combination, but then a standard satellite with the changeable transactional data attributes. Right. Now, going back to the insurance policies example, we have a valid from and valid to two timestamps, valid from and valid to, and then you have an amount. And we also have an alternative key. Let's say it's a valid from, together with policy ID and coverage ID. You can identify uniquely identify the records. So technically, you could model a dependent child link. In my opinion, it looks quite weird, even though it's technically correct, and logically, it's also kind of correct. I would argue, however, in the link, you would have the business keys, policies and coverage, and valid from, valid to, and even amount. They are descriptive data attributes to the link relationship. So in my opinion, valid from, valid to should stay together, those two data attributes. And the only way to do that is if you would build a multi-active satellites on top of the link between policy and coverage. And now you have a link with only the combination of policy and coverage, which is quite short, right? It's a short list of unique combinations. And then the valid from, valid to, an amount you would put into the satellites as descriptive information to the link, with the valid from as the multi-active key to uniquely identify the different validity time windows. So that is certainly in my opinion, a cleaner looking model, simply because you can argue, or I would argue, valid from, valid to are basically descriptive information as well, right? Another weird thing about a model with for this scenario with the dependent child link is if you put valid from to the link, then you would have combination of policy coverage and valid from. Um, it's quite redundant, no? So I would recommend to go with the multi-active satellites here to answer the question at hand, right? Of the session. Now, if you look at where like how to model this in Wherescape, I'm using the example of order line item again because it's quite easy to understand, right? As we already talked about that. And I'm using the north wind data. You should be able to recreate this from your training repository in Wherescape 3D and Red. So modeling dependent child link is quite a common use case. That is why you can use the out of the box patterns from Datavolt Express package um, to solve this. In many projects that we've been to implement Datavolt with Wherescape, we would like to make some modifications to the rules, because if you would tag for the order line item, you would tag the business keys with business key attribute type. The line number would be tagged as link dependent child, and then you would have a satellite transaction attribute. What would be generated out of this would look like so. You would have a link and then a transact satellite, right? So it's almost like this is the unmodified version of the model that you could produce. As I said earlier, um, if we would like to build a non-historized link with combined, say, a key combination and the transactional information attributes, then you would have to modify the model conversions in 3D a little bit so that this satellite is not going to be splitted. Basically, just remove the model conversion that would split the transact satellite so that these attributes would stay in the link, right? It's a quite easy customization. And then that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So no hash diff will be created. In this case, a hash diff is also quite redundant, because if you say transaction data cannot be changed, then you wouldn't expect delta, would you? So you can leave out the hash diff altogether because you don't need delta detection. Yeah, and then just put every attributes here to the link and call it a non-historized link, right? You can also change the the naming conventions within Wherescape for this, right? And that's that. So this is one this is the out of the box way to build, say, dependent child link, or in this case, non-historized a dependent child link with a satellite. But as I said, with small modifications, you can also achieve the other model variant, which is arguably yeah, more performant and more efficient, let's say. All right, it seems like there's no further question for now. If you have any further questions, just leave them in the comments or the Q&A here, and then we can get to it in the next session, as we did for this let's say episode of expert sessions. How about that? But yeah, let's keep talking about implementation in Wherescape in this expert session format. So we meet every last Thursday of the month, 14 to 14:30 CET, and we'll talk about best practices, good practices in data vault implementation with Wherescape, some advanced customizations, and of course, we'll talk about the topics that are suggested by you guys in the audience. Feel free to submit the questions also via the Google form in the Zoom registration. And I would like to encourage you to join the Data Vote Innovators community through this QR code. This is basically like a forum that you can ask data vote experts, data vote practitioners around the world about, data problems, data challenges, good practices, best practices, and just exchange knowledge, right? We are also very present on the platform, talking about automation tools, different implementation in the different tools. So I'd like to welcome you all to the community. Other than that, thank you for your attention, for your participation. Um, we will meet again in a month by the end of February. Thank you. Have a nice day, and I wish you guys a nice rest of the day. Take care. Bye bye.